So I've been asked by one of our subscribers, let's see if we could give our opinions on weight management. Now it's a very broad subject, and it all depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So we'll just assume that it's with regards to hunting and Harris hawks, and we'll see what we can see. The thing is, it's a broad subject. And it's very personal. It's very individual. You ask a thousand falconers one question, you'll get 1,000 different answers. So just from the start, I have to say, we're not experts. We don't preach our way over anybody's way. How I do things is different how James does things. It's different how Wayne does things. So even amongst ourselves, we do things differently, individually. So just to reiterate, we're not experts, but we can probably give our opinion. The reason behind this video is that a subscriber called Adrian said he'd be getting a Harris around July time, and he's finding it difficult to get reliable advice on feeding. So, like I said previously, I can only give our opinions on the subject, but here we go. Feeding and weight management all comes down to conditioning at the end. Just like anything, you want the bird in its peak physical condition. There are many factors that have to be taken into consideration, but at the end of the day, it's all about condition. It's all about body condition, feather condition, and ultimately, with regards to hunting, at the end of the day, you want to be flying your bird at its highest weight possible. It's got to be keen. It's got to be energetic, but you want it to be as heavy as possible, really. In my opinion, it's all about stopping power. It's all about endurance. It's all about speed, and obviously the way you care for and you feed your bird and your husbandry. That's the ultimate goal at the end of the day. As I've said, there are many factors that are going to play into the subject of weight management. The age of the bird, how it was reared, imprints, parent reared, all different types of factors are going to play into it. Birds are individual. I've had birds that have been a pleasure to work with. I've had birds that have been a nightmare to work with, pretty much for unknown reasons. So there is no one-stop shop. And the more people you spend time with, the varied approaches you'll find. The aim of the game, as far as I'm concerned, is to create a good working partnership, an understanding between you and the bird needs to know that you are a team player. You are there to help it succeed. Birds of prey, they're not pets. They don't work like dogs do. So you've just got to craft that partnership and an understanding of weight, an understanding of feeding is obviously essential to that. Many people who have experience in this field probably have gained the ability over time to understand their bird visually and by touch, to understand the attitude and where all that comes with regard to the weight of their bird. However, for those that are just getting into it, regular weighing and recording of weights and feeding quantities provides the best way to start to understand your bird. As time goes by, you will gain that understanding by touch and by feeling and by witnessing the attitude of the bird to have a good guess as to know where the bird is currently at that particular time. But until you get to that point, regular weighing and regular recording of feeding and weights is the way forward. So before we even get anywhere near hunting, let's start in the down season, our spring and summer. At this point, you've got to put enough fuel, enough food, a varied diet into the bird, simply for feather production. The bird's going to enter molt, not at the same time every year. Temperatures start to rise. We've finished our hunting March time. Cover starts to come back on the trees, and the bird starts to spit feathers. And to produce next year's feathers, the best quality feathers, then you've got to put the fuel into the bird. And it's this time that diet goes up, you vary up as much as you can. I personally feed day-old chicks, quail, pheasant, squirrel, rabbit, pigeon, rats, mice, just to vary up the diet. They all have different properties, so that's what you do as the bird goes through the molt. You fill it full of food, and then you will get to a point where you notice that the bird's appetite starts to diminish, and at that point you know that you've reached whatever is that bird's fat weight, as we call it, its high weight. This gives you a starting point to know where you've got to come back down from when you decide that it's time to gear up for the next season. And sometimes people will use things like diced beef. I tend not to do that. It does hold a lot more inside the bird. It does stick to them a lot more. But I don't tend to use diced beef, because what you'll find is the bird will probably just swallow large lumps, and I don't like the idea of that, because sometimes it can sit in the crop longer than it should do, which can cause problems, infections. So if you were to do that, ideally you want to be giving the bird a substantial piece that it can tear into smaller pieces itself, rather than just, if you offer our Harris hawk a big cube of beef, it will just swallow it, and that's probably not best practice. Some people do it, some people don't. But like I said, what you don't want is too much food sitting in the crop longer than it really should. It wants to be passing through that crop within hours, and it doesn't want to sit there getting a bit stale. So during the down season, the rewards of their hunts will be fed to them out of the freezer. Things like rabbits. I don't feed my birds whole carcasses. A rabbit I will quarter, simply because I don't like the mess of an entire carcass. I don't like the time it spends in the aviary, and obviously it will attract characters you're not wanting around your aviary, rats or even foxes, cats, whatever. So personally, and again, this is all just personal opinion, I don't skin the rabbits. They need the roughage, they need the bones, but I will not give entire carcasses unless it's something small like a squirrel. I don't even tend to feed my birds full quail. They'll get a quail halved, and just saves on the mess, and like I say, it saves on unwanted visitors. So as you draw towards the end of summer, your bird should be well on with its molt, new feathers. Obviously they take some time to produce a full set, but as you're backing out of summer, you should get to that point, and this is when you start to prepare for the oncoming hunting season, and this is where you start to reduce the level of intake. The diet has to come down, and obviously you will notice that your bird gets a little bit more bouncy. I've always free lofted. I don't tether birds, but again, that's just a personal way of doing things. Everything is individual about how you deal with these birds. There are many factors. Personal circumstances, as your own personal circumstances, will dictate how you look after your husbandry, your housing, all depends on your personal circumstances, the amount of time you can give to the bird, the environment that you're in, how quiet it is. These are all going to affect how this bird develops, and you've just got to understand lots of things. Noise, location, and circumstances are a big factor. When you're preparing for the next season and the weight of your bird is coming down, for the likes of Adrian, who's getting a new bird, manning is going to be a big factor. People with birds that have had years together with the handler don't have, in my experience, don't have the same level of manning to do each season as somebody with a new relationship with a bird. My old male Steve-O required no manning at all. He knew what the game was every year, and I would fly him down to weight. Usually hunted around £1.6 to £1.7. I'd start flying him around £1.10, and the attitude comes as the weight drops. But he never needed that much. He knew the game, and he knew me. New bird, Henny, she's a young one. Again, I've flown her down to weight from, I think we started at around £2.7. She hunts around 2-3. But I'd prefer to fly her down instead of long periods of long leading. Anyway, there shouldn't be any long periods of long leading. The manning process is getting through things as quickly as possible and not holding the bird back. So you begin by having the bird eat off the glove, jump into the glove, short lead flying, long lead flying, free flying. Quicker you can go through that process, the more benefits you'll get out of the future relationship with your bird. So the hunting weight of your bird is simply something you have to find out yourself. It's all about attitude. It's all about speed to your glove. So an average size female probably goes up to somewhere around 3 pounds during fat weight. Probably you're going to hunt between, I don't know, £2 and £2.6 maybe, depending on the size of the bird. But you will only know where you're at when that bird is on your glove like a bullet. When you know that, you know that the bird is super keen. But bear in mind what I said at the beginning. You are aiming to fly that bird as heavy as possible. So you don't want a bird that is so keen, it is only keen because it is starving. You'll know when the bird starts to come out of its summertime slumber, because its attitude changes. It goes from being indifferent regarding your glove to being keen, paying a lot more attention to you, and that's when you take the manning process further, and you're getting close to letting the bird go. But like I said, you can only judge that yourself. Nobody else can tell you when your bird's ready, and unless you're surrounded by people with experience who can see that for you, who know, who have witnessed you and the bird together, and they will say, "Yep, you're ready." But like I said, it's a personal understanding that you've got to achieve. You could get your bird manned, and everything's looking good, everything's looking right. In the manning process, let's say it's on your back garden, the bird's coming and going, lovely. You take it out, you put it in the trees, and the attitude is totally different. This is mainly a fascination thing because the bird's been away, confined for nearly 6 months, and especially if it's a young bird, you put it in the tree, and all of a sudden it's out in the big wide world, and perhaps doesn't perform the way it was doing on your back garden. Never believe that how it behaves on your back garden is an indicator for how it's going to work out in the wild. It's just a fallacy. It doesn't work like that. And the hunting weight rests on a knife edge. We're talking 1/4 and 1/2 ounces, grams difference, and all of a sudden you will hit that sweet spot, and the bird's desire, its attitude, and its forward progress just really starts to move. And like I said, the difference in attitude can be less than half an ounce. It's just something to be aware of. So at some point, you're going to find that your bird's attitude is correct. It's got the desire to chase. It's working with you. It's returning to the glove when you need it to. But it's the hunting attitude that you're looking for. When you hit that weight, now you're in a position to try to maintain that weight. And depending on the size of your bird and its metabolism, and the fact that you've been keeping records, you by that point ought to have a knowledge base of how much food, whatever it is you're feeding the bird, keeps it at that weight, there or thereabouts at that weight. So whether that be 3 chicks a day, half a quail, a rat, 5 mice, whatever, you will have got to that point where you know, right, I just need to maintain this level of food intake, and I know what is required to keep your bird at that effective weight, at the weight that pushes it forward, that spurs it on to hunt. And like I say, at that point it doesn't matter what it is you're feeding it, so long as it's good quality and you maintain the same approximate weight per day. It's also important to understand that you will never hit the exact same weight 2 days running. During hunting season, your bird's going to expend a lot of energy while it's out, and the weather conditions, the temperatures, will also have an effect overnight. If you get a really cold night, then your bird's going to burn more internal energy trying to stay warm. If it's mild, not so much. So I always think it's a good idea to weigh your bird before you go out, weigh your bird when you come back in, and also have an understanding of what the weight of the quantity of food is that you are giving your bird. Maybe it would be 6 ounces that keeps it at the weight that you have achieved, the weight that works best for that bird. Maybe it's 4 ounces of food a day. If I find on a Friday that I expect the bird to be overweight in my mind for Saturday morning, because I know how much it will shed overnight, then I will feed it a smaller quantity, a smaller mass. And again, this is just something that repetition will allow you to gain an understanding of. You also have to be mindful about the quantity of food the bird will consume while you're out. That also includes allowing it to feed on a catch, which obviously is the best way forward, that you want the bird to have a reward for what it's just done. And that comes from feeding off of the catch. This all adds up. So you've just got to be mindful of what goes in compared to what the bird expends in energy. Now, I like to fly my bird to chicks and mice. Not everybody else does, but I like using white mice because it's a visual difference, and it breaks up the monotony of day-old chicks. Now, in the past, I used to prepare the day before with individual bite-sized pieces, whether that be heads and legs or but proportioned pieces.
Clever one.
Now, the idea behind that is that when you put the glove up, the bird just consumes what's in the glove, because you want to be constantly trying to make sure that the bird doesn't get any idea about being deprived or being robbed of food. So if you put up a whole chick, then obviously you don't want the bird to eat the entire chick right there and then. So yeah, you have to remove it from the bird without it feeling that you've cheated it. So individual bite-sized pieces is probably the best way forward. Don't tend to do that so much these days, but I've done it in the past, and again, it's just something you have to work out between you and the bird. Same with trading off. They catch something, you allow them to consume some of it, and then you want them away from that without them feeling like you've just robbed them of the entire reason why they're out. So there are multiple factors in weight management and maintaining a hunting weight whereby the bird has the desire to go out and do it.
Being very good.
Like I say, anything that I've said here is our opinion. I invite everybody else to chip in. The more information you can glean from people. This is another thing. Whenever anybody's asked me how do you get into this sort of thing, I always say the best way forward is to find a local club. Surround yourself with people who've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. And then you just pick out the bits that feel relevant to you and allow you to move forward. But the best way forward is to surround yourself with people who know it. So find a club, hawking club, falconry club.
Good girl.
Absorb as much as you can. Then, like we did, we decided that clubs were not the way we wanted to go forward. So, but it's always my first piece of advice to anybody getting involved. Go and find other people that know what they're doing. Because, like I say, you can do it on the internet, but you'll find thousands of opinions, which is not bad, but it can be confusing. So if you can see it hands-on, if you can get somebody to lay their hands on you while you're getting to learn the ropes, then I've always thought that's the best way.